folks. It's Dan with What's the Hold Up Pod again. Really excited to come out with a new episode for you this week. We're going to have a guest. Her name is Jamie Howard. You might know her from Blue Sky as Glitterburrito. She hosts the Bloody Broad podcast. She hosts How Did You Get Here? She is an actress. She is an all-around delight. And she joined me to talk about the 1978 horror classic Dawn of the Dead, and really got into what I was hoping this podcast would become. It was really enjoyable. I got to rewatch a movie I hadn't seen in 20 years. We got to discuss why it mattered then, why it still matters, and just want to say what a great time I had recording with Jamie. Once again, you can find this wherever you can get your podcasts. Reach out to me, jacketdan.bluesky.app, if you can't get it where you want it, and I will do whatever I can to get it up there. And here we are. Want to listen to me and Jamie Howard chop it up about Dawn of the Dead. What's the Hold Up Pod? It is me, Dan, and I am very excited to actually have a guest this week. So unlike last week, I did not screw this up. I have a guest, and with me is Jamie Howard. Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm so excited you wanted to have me on, especially talk about the movie that we wound up picking. And yeah, I'll let you do the rest of your intro, but I'm very happy to be here.
That's as detailed as the intro gets, other than to come back and say, yeah, tell us just really quick. I said this before we started, but it's still funny to me to say, what are you here to promote to my dozens of listeners? What would you like to
I'm
promote? Where can they find you? What else do you do? Just share with everybody real quick, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah. Yeah. So most people probably know me if they know me from the internet as Glitter Burrito. My name is Jamie Kirsten Howard. I'm an actor here in Atlanta, Georgia. You probably note that I podcast and that I do social media for other clients and that I write. I have two main podcasts. One is called How Did You Get Here? It's a career path podcast where I sit down with a guest. And just like inside the actor's studio, we start off with the same five questions every episode. And the conversation kind of meanders from there. And then, of course, I have Bloody Broads, which I think is going to make a lot more sense to people who've never listened to it when they hear what movie we're covering. It's a horror movie podcast. We just started our fourth season, and we talk about not just horror movies, but books and TV shows and spooky things in general. And I'm very excited that we've started this fourth season. And yeah, you can find me also on Patreon as Glitter Burrito, where I write. Oh, and horror movie blog. They would kill me if I didn't promote that. um,
Yeah.
horrormovieblog.com. I am the jokingly call myself the Carrie Bradshaw of horror, but with better choices, life choices. And I talk about things from both inside and outside the industry. And I basically just get to talk about whatever I want to for two columns a month, which I'm very grateful they gave me that space to do so. So I think I covered everything.
No, I love it. And that's actually perfect what you just talked about, because that's kind of where, as I thought about this show and we got started and we were talking a little bit about it, is sort of the notion of this. It can be, it doesn't have to just be, when I first started thinking it would be a movie podcast, but I realized it can
Mm-hmm.
be kind of anything about art that speaks to us. Any kind of art. I've thought about doing stand up now, other stuff like watching old stand up specials and
Oh,
seeing,
I thought you meant you were going to do stand up. And
God,
I got
no,
really, I was like, yes,
no,
Dan
no,
should do stand up.
no.
Everybody that's listening, bully Dan into
Oh
doing
God,
stand
God,
up.
no. I have listen, I am fucked up enough to be a stand-up comedian because
Hello.
it takes a level of emotional I probably oh God. No, but I love it as an art. But I love so I'm hoping at some point to have somebody on. We're gonna, someone we both know just went to the Oasis concert. She and I have talked about having her come on and talk about why
Yes.
she was excited to do that. So all of those types of things. So obviously you've leaned into this. So it's September, which we all know means spooky season has started, and we're gonna
Correct.
do a horror movie. So what we decided, we jointly kind of came to, was the idea of the 1978, not the Zack Snyder, the actual Dawn of the Dead from 1978. And I'll give a very quick kind of my background on this, just so people know. I don't do horror movies. I am not a horror movie person. I struggle with them. I will watch them. I'm going to gird up my loin and watch Sinners sometime here soon
Finally.
because
Finally.
because everybody's talked about it. But I struggle with horror movies. It's not my favorite. I have exactly when you messaged me about this, I have exactly two genres I can kind of do, which is why Sinners is on the list. I can do vampires, and for whatever weird reason, I can do zombies. And so you said, let's do Dawn of the Dead and see if it holds up. And I thought it's a great idea. So I'll open with kind of a question to you, and then we'll kind of talk about when did you first see this, and why do you think it stuck with you?
So this would have been about 2005 or maybe late 2004. I had seen the original Night of the Living Dead, which is much less gory than this. Granted, the gore in this is not gratuitous in the way that it is now because it is 1978 fake
Yeah,
blood and body parts and very blue tinted zombies.
yeah, yeah.
uh, but I had seen the original Night of the Living Dead, which is the first horror movie I ever saw fully all the way through. And I did what any enterprising ADHD young woman who had internet access at the time did, which was look up things about the movie because I immediately became obsessed with it. I saw that the director was George Romero, and I fell in love with all of his stuff. I found a version of this on Putlocker. Shout out to Pirate Bay for all of us who remember Pirate Bay.
No idea what you're talking about. I deny all knowledge of such thing.
Allegedly, allegedly.
Allegedly, yes.
Allegedly, I found a copy on Putlocker and Pirate Bay and watched it because the only thing I had seen of this prior were basically just what I could catch, when they would show it on TV during, Halloween season and things like that. And I found out that that was like the edited version essentially, which wasn't edited for content necessarily, but for time because it is a
Yep.
2 hour and 16-minute movie. And so to make a very long story short, I watched it all the way through on my very crappy Dell laptop in my teenage bedroom. And I immediately became obsessed, not just with the characters, but with the themes and kind of, diving deep into the world of Tom Savini, who now is this huge makeup artist, but at the time was just getting his start. And the fact that George Romero wanted to shoot it in the Pittsburgh area, and he's very proud of that. And yeah, I mean, I was a emo scene kid who fell in love with horror movies. Shocker.
Yeah, so it's funny because you and I saw it about the same time for the first time. So my kind of weird history. So I'll go talking about being on TV, which is a weird thing because I think part of where I could do horror movies, weirdly enough, to throw it all the way back. So the USA Network every now and
Yes.
again on a random Saturday or Sunday would just put on a bunch of horror movies. They'd run like a whole zombie marathon. So I saw Day of the Dead before I ever saw
Oh,
Night of the Living Dead or I saw this. So all I remember is like training the zombie and the weird end of that. And I was like a
and it's
kid.
a very different Day of the Dead is the 80s, so it's a very different
Yeah.
approach to zombies.
Yeah. You had that and then you had was it like Revenge of the Living Dead? You had the other ones with like, the when it starts to move into that, it becomes more about the effects and less about the
Yeah.
story. So like I'd seen that. So funny, I saw this, and I'll date it. I saw this on Netflix, but original Netflix, as in they
With the
sent
DVD.
me a DVD in the mail,
Yes.
and I watched this movie. And I had seen a lot of people talk about why it was important and all those types of things. And I remember it's one of the first times where you go, oh man, genre films can tell a great story, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
clearly like there's a story and it's well done. And we can talk a little bit about like 70s pacing and stuff like that, although I miss it a little bit because this is a 2 hour and 16-minute movie that I rewatched it for this. I did not feel long,
At
right?
all. I know I say all the time on Bloody Broads that we love a tight 90, like Scream is like 96 minutes. Y'all know I
Sure.
love Scream. But a 1970s 2 to 2.5 hour film does more than current 3 hour films in terms of
Yeah.
storytelling. And I'll stand by that.
No, I think it's really fair. Like things get to build. You get and it's
Yes.
funny because it's 2 hours and 16 minutes. And we were talking about this before. I've said it on other like this isn't going to be we're going to go through scene by scene type podcast. But I do have to jump in on the fact that like it starts in media res, right? Like it opens
Intense in media res.
very intense, right? And we can talk about some themes and stuff. I think these are other things that make it stick with us because it starts in media res and the movie starts with regular people, not zombies, fighting with each other, right? So the actual source of the conflict that exists in this whole problem. Um, and they just let it build. And like one of my other favorite 70s movies, completely different genre like this, is the movie Slapshot, if you've ever seen it, the hockey
Yes,
movie, right?
love it.
Very 70s pacing. Like they don't play hockey for like almost an hour into that
Now,
movie. You
now
know,
that you've said it, I've never thought about it, but now that you've said it, I need to go back and rewatch because that's so true.
the Hanson brothers do not get on the ice until almost halfway through the movie, right?
Oh my God.
And then, and it's got that same kind of thing where it's the slow pace, and then it's kind of just nonstop, relentless all the way almost until the end. And
Yes.
that, like you said, it tells more and it's different. And for a zombie movie, which is all about kind of foreboding, very nihilistic. Oh, it's not it's not if it's when, right? Like
Yeah.
eventually something will go wrong, and we're gonna like make a life for ourselves as long as we can. God, I was so happy you asked for this, and when I rewatched it, it was so great because this you know classic gets thrown around a little too much. This is a classic
Listen,
movie.
and we did eventually, we've covered this before, but then we did eventually review the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead, and that's always my bone to pick with it, is that you don't care as much about the characters in the new one because the pacing is so quick and we don't have a lot of reason to feel bad
Yeah.
for them. Like I don't really feel bad for anyone except for the nurse in that movie.
Well, yeah, I didn't care about anybody. I was more
Yeah.
excited for and I mean, I watched that one when it came out. I've never watched it again. But it will always stick with me because I remember, the Leo pointing meme when Tom Savini's zombie climbs up over the
Yes.
railing, and you're like, okay, that's a fun little callback to this movie. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this again, and I have to almost just answer the question that usually comes at the end of what's the holdup. I have so few bones to pick with this
Yeah.
movie
Good.
as
Oh,
a
thank God.
film. Like, other than like, okay, yeah, the blue zombie makeup's kind of weird, right? I mean, they're just doing the
And I
best they
can
can.
tell you why it's blue. We can get into that.
Yeah, that would be fun. I mean, obviously, the Night of the Living Dead shot in black and white, so you get to get away with a lot less makeup. You have that. Yeah, some of the practical effects are a little hokier, but to be honest, as a big wimp, I don't mind. Like the fact that it looks like he's clearly biting cake. I'm great. Thank
There's
you.
so much foam and baked goods and various things that Tom Savini used. But so their makeup is actually gray, but
Okay.
because of the kind of film that this was shot on, it turned out blue. And he has always said that that's totally on him. He was like, that's my bad. You know, you couldn't see things the same way that you
Yeah.
could now, like on a monitor. Like it's not digitally automatically in front of you. And yes, they could watch dailies, but they were shooting this on such a small budget and, shooting around the mall being open, like the mall's open hours.
Yeah.
So they were truly running and gunning it, even for as big of a production as this wound up being. But I'm so glad this held up. And it's funny that you brought up how, with a lot of zombie movies, it's a lot of buildup because on Bloody Broads back in the first season, I said, horror is the inevitable.
Mm.
It's what you can't stop coming down the tracks. I mean, death is always a lot of people's number one fear in life. And things like the new Final Destination that just came out, where it was inevitable that people were going to get got by death chasing this family, and they were all trying to figure out how to avoid it. And I always find it really interesting when, like you said, genre is able to tell such a good story. And I think that's why genre is able to be so honest about our fears and about society at large, is because it's not afraid to go there and it's not dancing around people's sort of need to be comforted like in a rom-com, because rom-com
Yeah.
is kind of the opposite, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like, because the inevitability should be, oh well, they misconnection, they never get married or whatever, they never have a relationship.
Yeah. That's that very fun movie.
Right. It's like the antithesis to rom-com. But with horror, it's like, something bad is going to happen and you still signed up for this, which is life.
Yeah, well, and I think what's to talk about that, right? About like
Yeah.
what makes the genre work a little bit too is the fact that like I think you can do that and like you can challenge me as a viewer, and by putting it's how I feel like about sci-fi fantasy, my favorite
Mm.
genres, because it's like, okay, but what you can do is you can hit me almost with harder truths, than a more realistic story can, because like I need that touch of removal from going, okay, but somewhere in my subconscious this can't actually happen. But
Right.
oh, but but like, ultimately, I think my favorite thing about every zombie movie, and also I guess I should, shout out just the zombie genre. Like, so World War Z is one of my favorite books of all time, and one of my least favorite
Love the
movies.
book. I was about to say, love the book, did not care for the movie.
Terrible movie, right? And it's a terrible adaptation of the book because the book
Yeah,
really, like, zombie movies aren't about zombies. Zombie movies are about how people react to zombies. That is exactly what the story is there for, which is the opposite. Like my other genre, I like vampire movies. That's different, right? That's, those are always a little more sexy, hard, whatever else most of the
yeah,
time, and a bunch of other stuff, and that's fun too. Nothing wrong for that. But zombie movies are always about like, God, if we were organized as a society and collaborative, this wouldn't be a problem. And I think why I liked World War Z, the book, is it ends with the hope of saying that we wouldn't fuck it all up. Whereas
right.
every George Romero story continues through like, nope, everybody, it's very Mad Max. It's very that world of like everybody, the second you drop a little bit of a monkey wrench into society, we just fly in every fucking direction.
Exactly. Yeah, zombie movies are survival movies. And it's really interesting to me to watch them through the lens of not as literal, okay, these are zombies, but almost as a sociological study because that's what they are. And I think, like you said, that's why they're able to tell such truths because everyone has a plan, right? And how the quote goes until they get punched in the mouth. And
Yeah.
it's true. Like everybody's got this idea of I would survive because XYZ. But the reality is so different.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, so you have that, right? And it's like, and it's really interesting. It was fun to kind of revisit this. I know it's 5 years removed, but coming out of like the height of the pandemic and like
Oh,
people
listen. Yes.
refusing to be reasonable, right? Like you've got the scientist up there going, look, all you have to do is burn the dead people in your life or cut their head off or what. And people are like refusing to do it because and it's like, but you have to do these very simple things, right? These reasonable, simple things. And everybody threw it back in his face like this is the most unrealistic thing. And it's probably funny because in 78, people are like, oh, this is fucking asinine. No one would act like
No
this.
one would ever do this. Yeah.
They'll do the simple things the government suggests so we can maintain a reasonable existence. And yeah,
Laughing to
not so
keep from
much.
crying.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right. And that's that's the piece of it that's just, it just works so well. Right. And you know, what even then, like their utopia falls apart because of other people.
Exactly.
That is,
It's
that's
it
the beauty of the story.
could not have said it better myself. Sorry, y'all listening. I'm just sitting here kind of like nodding my head and quietly saying yes because it always is now, I think, post pandemic, it's always going to come back to us comparing it to COVID. And I think we just need to accept that. And
Yeah.
that's been a critique of a lot of horror media sort of post the height of the pandemic is that, oh, this is just rehashing COVID or, oh, this is just rehashing 2020 through 2022, whatever. We as a society do not sit with our emotions and we don't sit with our dead, both literally and figuratively. So I always compare it to how, back in the day, you would have a dead body and like have a wake. And that would be, it was your family member and they stayed in your house and you dressed them for the funeral and you mourned them properly. And now we ship them off to a funeral home
Mhm.
to be embalmed or we donate our body to science. And then in a more spiritual sense, we now don't even let celebrities be dead for like what a year before people start trying to use their image in like AI or like
Yeah.
advertising
Yeah.
or whatever. And we're so uncomfortable with the idea of death because we're still viewing that body as like that person and we're not letting ourselves mourn them. But to your point about the people pushing back against the doctor and saying, like, I'm not going to cut my loved one's head off, they are being more compassionate to someone who is no longer here while denying compassion and help that would be life-saving to people who are currently breathing and still
Yeah.
with us. And as the movie sort of goes along, the humanity devolves, and we see that in the main character, in that core group of the survivors that the story follows, where they start treating the zombies less and less like humans.
Yeah.
And from the jump, Peter, who is my favorite, Ken Furry is
Yes, he's incredible.
incredible. I have had the great privilege and honor of speaking to him several occasions about different things, not just this film. And he definitely sees it this way as well. So it was very validating to hear that my interpretation was this. But he's the logical one, but he's the most compassionate one in a way.
Yeah.
And Galen Ross's character, she winds up being pregnant, and it's really progressive, especially for 1978. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That they're the two survivors, but she's pregnant and she's not hysterical at all. Like
No.
she cries like maybe twice, and it's a very silent,
Yeah.
tears running down the cheeks because there are other characters that she cares about being killed. And I was just like, how did George Romero write this in 1978?
Well, and so it's incredible too because that's two zombie movies in a row, and I'm not super familiar with his full filmography. I know his
Yeah.
zombie stuff the best, but like he had a Black American as a primary character in both of
Yes.
his movies in an era in time where that is not really common, and Peter is the only one with a lick of fucking sense in this whole
Listen,
movie.
listen. He says something so moving. There's two lines specifically that I want to talk about that Peter says. So there's a part closer to the beginning where they're escaping on the helicopter.
Hmm.
And Roger, who is kind of the by the book, person of the whole group,
Yeah.
is panicking because he's like, "Oh my God, we just stole the TV station's helicopter, and oh my God,
Yeah.
how we can't loot, we can't steal, whatever." He is completely letting society's laws override his morals,
Right.
which I think is relevant, extremely, extremely relevant to today. And Peter just looks at him and goes, "We're the thieves and bad guys. That's exactly what we are." And it's making sure that they don't other themselves so much that they think they are above the rest of humanity.
Yeah.
Again, which unfortunately is just still so relevant to today, this sort of self-segregation by arbitrary sets of what's quote unquote legal, and
Yeah.
is someone themselves legal or illegal.
Yeah.
I really like if George Romero could come back and, from the dead, RIP, and
Yeah.
direct one more movie. I would just want him to see 2025 and show that Peter, like bring back Ken, have him play Peter again,
Yeah.
bring back Galen Ross, have her play her character again, and show how they would react to the world 40 plus years later. That's such
Yeah.
a pipe dream, but still.
Yeah. It's 47 because I was born in 1978. So
I'm so sorry.
yeah, no, all good. All
I was
good.
guesstimating. I was guesstimating.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's but yeah, I mean how they would respond because that was the thing. And I would say this, if it had come out in 2019, I would have still said, what's the holdup? It still works very well, right? I mean,
Right.
you were still dealing with, we're still dealing with all the social issues that he's talking about at the time. And that's actually a thing that's kind of interesting to it. I'm not going to call it hopeful. It's not hopeful, but I guess it's a reality that I
Yeah.
found interesting about the movie was, like, oh, we've always been this way. We've
Oh
all,
my
right
God.
right now
Yes.
it's not, and it's actually important. You look at Blue Sky and everything that's happening, and you sit here and you go, you know what, we're not that fucking special right now. It's actually, we're both friends with Jason Kirk, and it's a
Yes. Yes.
big
Yes.
thing. Like how cyclical society is a big portion of what he talks about and he writes about, and that's what this movie is about. It's weird that a zombie movie is timeless, but it's because it is a lens by which we analyze ourselves and go, well, Jesus Christ, we've kind of always sucked, but we also don't always have to suck, right? And we can find hope in each other. And that's like those tensions. I love tensions in storytelling, and that's the tension that lives in this movie.
And it's funny you bring up, have we always been like this? Because obviously I wanted to talk about that aspect of it, where people have such an idealized version of the past because again, we do not sit with our past and our dead, either
Mhm.
physically or spiritually as a society. Western society is just not good at it. People refuse to sort of look back and say, oh, here's all the things that were bad, but I wasn't personally part of that. So for example, during Night of the Living Dead, obviously it was absolutely not common to have a black lead. And Romero has said he originally was not thinking of it as, oh, I'm casting a black man in this role, but he did work with the script and kind of with all the actors as they were filming because you can't ignore it, right? Like it
Yeah.
very much is a huge part of the story that he is not white. And we can't even have frank conversations about things like that now without people chiming in and being like, oh, well, that was my granddad or that was my dad. It's not me. Or you're pushing an agenda by having a non-white person in a movie, which is crazy. So, but yes, with 78, the thing I find so interesting is that they do a great job of I apologize for this word choice, but there's nothing else I can think of. Integrating the story into reality.
Yeah.
Like, because at this point, there was the rise of more Western society and like America at large, and yes, capitalism had already gotten a hold of the Black Power movement, and they were now commercializing it.
Right.
And there was the Black exploitation films, which I could talk about all day long. Shaft had come out by this time, I think,
Yeah.
and it was it
Don't mind, I
wasn't
think it definitely come out by that
okay.
point in time too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good because I love that movie. But Peter is very much modeled after, that sort of machismo, that sort of,
Yeah.
I'm a black man in charge and I'm the most level-headed. And, we get the stereotypes of the biker gangs and them coming through too, which is also, I feel, very 70s, which I love.
Yeah.
And again, he's the one organizing. And in my mind and my backstory that I have for him in my mind, I'm like, oh, of course he's used to being the leader and organizing because that's what you had to do to survive if you were not the in group of a larger community or city.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the fact that he's there and it's I love that our introduction to him, and then they don't dwell on this, right?
Yeah.
Our introduction to him is shooting a member of his own SWAT team who is a racist piece of shit who has gone crazy. And it's
Which
like there's this
chef's kiss.
it's just so, and then he just moves on, right? He just moves on.
He's like, well,
Whatever, done. Took care of that. Been wanting to do that for fucking years.
literally.
And finally got to do it. And he does that. He basically looks, God, why am I forgetting? It's Peter, and what's the other guy's name? The blonde-headed guy.
Uh, that would be
Roger.
Roger.
Roger,
So
yeah.
there's Stephen, Roger, Peter, and Francine.
So I just think of Flyboy and Flygirl, and
Yes.
and I can remember Peter, and then yes, Roger. And he basically looks at Roger and goes, "Are you cool?" And Roger's like, "Yeah, he sucked."
After Roger is like almost thrown up in the laundry basin,
Yeah.
in the basement of this apartment building,
Yeah.
which again, like you said, to go back to the opening of the movie, we've always been like this. Is the SWAT team shooting at these, complaining that the immigrants that they're busting because they're, quote, staying in nicer digs than him?
Yeah.
Is that not what we're dealing with right now?
It
Like,
was, I had forgotten. It was so perfect. And he's bitching about the Puerto Ricans
yes.
and he calls them,
Oh,
the S
every
word.
slur.
There's
I was going to
every,
say, if y'all have not seen this movie, go ahead and buckle up because
yes.
the slurs are left and right in the first 10 minutes and then they taper off.
And
But
then
yes.
it goes from there. So yeah, so you have that argument going on. You have the cut over from the chaos at the TV station. And a funny thing in there, you talk about capitalism coming in, and a thing that sticks out with me is the guy coming in upset that they're off the air because people will change the channel. Not
Yep.
not because they can't get to aid stations. She's cutting it off because she's like, we can't send these people to aid stations that are overrun or full. Like that it's just going to make it worse. And it's like, so did way better than what the newsroom was ever trying to do. The notion of what is the motivation that you ever have, which is a guy in there yelling that they're changing the channel, and you're in the middle of
100%.
the zombie fucking apocalypse. And somebody's yelling about the fact that they're going to change the channel.
Well, and that's the other thing. Francine is the TV executive. He's just like the on air director.
Yeah,
And so you have that imbalance in their relationship that I think you see as they make decisions once it's revealed she's pregnant. And also, again, this was kind of middle of women's lib stuff, wasn't quite the peak of like the 80s power, female yet. But Francine is very much like, no, I'm going to make these decisions and you can deal with them to the whole group. Her little speech about I'm not going to be your den mother and don't treat me any differently just because I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
So good.
And you're never leaving me without a gun again.
Period.
Period. And it was like so great. I also loved like little side just I think the other thing that's great about 70s movies or at least this film, not every movie from the 70s, but the ones that last. The other thing, so talking about him shooting the cop, finding out she's pregnant and they're talking about it. And what is the first thing she does? And I know it's supposed to be the air, but people still know she lit a cigarette. She is pregnant, and the first thing she does is she is just like, yeah,
She was like, I got to get one off right now,
yeah,
which
she's
the amount of smoking in this movie, it takes me out every time because
yeah,
I forget how prevalent it was.
yeah.
And I ask people about that all the time. I ask my mom all the time, like, did people legit smoke when they were pregnant? And she was like, yes, they were telling women to have like one or two cigarettes a week because it was good for their like blood flow. And I was like,
The nicotine
what?
will loosen up your blood. So she does that. She's drinking a glass of wine like that. But it's a subtle undercurrent of nihilism in there too, right? Because
Yes.
I think even then people knew like, well, this is bullshit. We're going to convince ourselves that it's okay to smoke while we're pregnant,
Oh, yes.
and just because we don't want to give it up. But she's just like, fuck it, whatever. I'm not. I mean, there's just a degree of her being like, I'm not living to see this baby be born. So
No. And she's
whatever.
so, like you said, so pragmatic about it. Like there's
That's
no, even when they're doing the shopping spree, which is one of my favorite montages of the
so
whole
good.
movie, she doesn't go try on maternity clothes. She doesn't go get baby items.
Yeah,
She is in the designer section getting a new bag, a new dress, a new hat, like some
yeah,
candy with Roger.
so great. I also love that there was nudity on YouTube. I don't think they knew that. I found this movie just free streaming on YouTube. So the post, she's just there naked, and I'm like, I'm not
I
gonna tell
did
anyone.
not know that it was on. Oh, I knew it was on YouTube for free on and off. It pops up and goes
Yeah,
away.
and
But
people,
the fact that the YouTube version still has the nudity,
that
chef's
was
kiss.
yeah, perfect.
No
That's
notes.
great. But it's like, yeah, the whole so like I just it was such a it fits today. It's told so well. I think to your point, yes, there's moments where you can tell it's low budget, but it does not feel low budget, right?
At
It
all.
does not feel low budget. There's a couple of moments where you're like, yeah, can tell. Like it's funny. I felt like Ken Foree got more comfortable as an actor as the movie progressed.
Absolutely.
Like he was and I think they shot this in order, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
like he's way more comfortable, or you could say he gets more comfortable as his character, but I don't think so. I think it's only like the second movie he'd ever done at that point in time. I was just reading about it.
Yeah. He, so the story that I was told
Mhm,
from the man himself,
mhm.
he was doing a show at the time, like an off-Broadway show. And they were like, you should go audition for this guy that's in town, this guy being George Romero. And he was like, yeah, okay. And he didn't really know anything that much about him. And he wasn't even like a main character. He was only on stage for like a couple minutes in the show, but he had gotten all these rave reviews from his like couple of minutes of work. And he auditioned and thought like maybe I got it, maybe I didn't, like who knows, you know. And I was like, you didn't think you nailed it? And he was like,
I just
nonchalant. He was like,
and then one of the most memorable just horror performances and characters
of all
ever.
time. Like when I think of zombie movies, I think of this core four.
Hmm.
And I also specifically think of him and Galen. And she's still out doing the con circuit. Like she'll,
Oh,
do appearances and stuff like that. But I digress. I just think that you can definitely tell that they all kind of settled into the roles
yeah,
as they went along.
yeah.
And how they shot this on such a slim budget is beyond me. To your point, I'm constantly thinking they had to shoot this around mall operation hours. So they were shooting this at the Monroeville Mall. I'm just thinking for set deck purposes, like after they do their shopping spree and they've, completely destroyed the mall after the biker gang, how fast did they have to clean that up to
Yeah.
get it back to business hours?
Well, but in a way, if you watch it, it's like, it seems real messy, but it's not. You have me thinking about that. And what they also did was like a brilliant job. And this, once again, I don't know, I could talk about how they made this, but I talk about anything about this movie. I
Yeah,
just
same.
forgot how fucking great it was until I rewatched it. Um, but like, they did such a great job with a limited number of sets, but making it feel like a lot of sets
Yes.
and all that type of stuff. It's like, okay, we'll just do a scene outside the mall. And it's honestly a lot of tight shots and trucks but but we'll just do different angles and we'll make it work. And it's it was made with a lot of care by people that cared about it. They had a story they wanted to tell that they cared about, and I think it all really came through. So, like I said,
It,
what's the holdup's great. The only thing I had one that I thought about this, and we can transition to one of the prompts you actually had in here too. I would say maybe the only thing that doesn't quite hold up today is the
Gonna be
notion of
mine.
how important the mall is.
That's what I was gonna say. Okay,
Yeah,
because the mall, the only way that this could work now is if they did it in a dead mall.
yeah, yeah. Like
And
you're at North DeKalb.
yeah, oh my God, please.
And they're in the
And
bounce house place that's on the side of
yes,
North DeKalb. That's like,
oh my God, the flashbacks I just got. And also the other thing that I was discussing when we talked about I think it's 2007. Y'all don't scream at me. The Zack Snyder version.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, the guest we had on the time was like, this was peak mall culture. And I said, I was a freshman in high school at the time. And I can tell you right now, it had definitely started to die off, at least in America by then, because
yeah,
that was leading into the '08 recession.
yeah,
And I vividly remember stores starting to close then.
yeah,
And, yes, there were still moments of like teens, mom and dad dropping us off or whatever. But anyways, not to beleaguer the point, but it's funny because people say things like, "Oh, you're taking movie analysis too deep when it comes especially to horror genre." That often gets sort of frowned upon, and then we had this resurgence in the last 10 years of, the real horror is the trauma we got along the way, and
yeah,
people
yeah.
got tired of that and that kind of thing. But looking back, I mean, when I can't remember who asks Peter what they are or what they're doing, like what the zombies are doing.
Yeah.
But he's telling them, oh, they're here because it's a trace of their past
Yeah,
life. And it must have been somewhere important to them because this was peak mall culture. And I mean,
yeah,
there's a steakhouse in the mall, for God's
yeah,
sakes.
yeah. It was like this was so, being a touch older, like I lived in like, hell, we're from, we grew up in the same area. So
Yes.
like my mom would drop me off at Columbus Square Mall.
Oh my God.
During
Come
the
back, Columbus
summer,
Square.
my
Yeah.
mom would drop me off at Columbus Square and I just fucking wander around for like, I
The
mean, mall.
arcade.
I played the
Yes.
arcade. I had a buddy at the arcade that I would get to click free games off for me.
Yes.
If I didn't go steal change out of the fountain
Yes.
to play video games.
Delinquent.
Yeah, that's my bit of delinquent. I'm the biggest goody two shoes ever, so I would do a bit of that. So, yeah, certain things. So that aspect, like, so Mall Rats is one of my favorite movies. It really spoke to me. That
Love mall rats.
came out peak. That's peak mall time. Like
Yes.
the 80s into the mid 90s is when like I think mall culture really, not to do like you said, everything's a trauma we had along the way, and not everything died in 9/11, but I think
But
mall culture started to die. That was like the first arrow, and then the second one was the Great Recession. So you'd have to do it really differently now.
well, and to sort of add on to that, something I say a lot when I'm talking about pop culture is so much died with Columbine. I
Yeah,
mean, so much. And not to make light of the word died, you guys, but truly, I look back at what my elementary school was before and after.
hmm,
And Columbus, Georgia, and Phoenix City, Alabama, of all places, which we had Fort Benning. So I kind of hear him out on that one. But even the mall, like we had tighter security. Columbus Square Mall was not as big then, but Peachtree had started to really, pop off. And I just remember there being such an increased security presence. And the one zombie we don't see in this entire movie is a mall security zombie.
yeah, yeah. No, there's none of. They just had gates, and simple like all the. There wasn't even like it was funny because you didn't even have like the slide down metal
Yes.
doors that came down for that, and probably part of that's like it's rural PA, and
Right.
some of that even changed into the 80s in that kind of general culture. But yeah, it's so one thing. So I don't want to go too far afield. It would be funny. Yeah, it would
No.
either be a dead mall, but what would be the important place? Where would do they go? Is it a mega church that has a Starbucks in it? Like,
Correct. Correct. I was going to say a mega church with a Starbucks or a Cabela's because the Cabela's in
yeah,
there's one of the very small towns in between like our hometown and then
yeah,
Tuscaloosa and Birmingham area.
yeah,
There's a Cabela's that's attached to a strip mall. Because in this mall, in this movie, a pivotal plot point is that there's a gun store in the mall.
yeah, So
And
you
I
could,
don't think people realize there's a grocery store in the mall.
yeah, a full one.
Yes.
He's eating olives, like nice
Yes.
olives, and the ground coffee. And it's like even that was a little different than like our mall experience by the time
Exactly.
you're into the
Yeah.
90s and 2000s. But yeah, no, I think it's a mega church, or it's the Bass. You could do it in the Bass Pro Shop pyramid and just make Alex McDaniel's life if they.
That's where I'm going. All right. If shit hits the fan, because the other option, of course, is Costco, but people have always talked about the merits or demerits of locking yourself in a Costco during a zombie apocalypse.
That it doesn't have it's open, right? There's nothing
Exactly.
you cannot wall yourself off. Um so yeah, it's God, I don't know. I loved this movie. I loved the themes of this movie. God, so many good lines. Yeah, this place was important to them. We're the thieves,
So
we're the
many.
bad guys. That's like that whole thing of looking at him and going the mental shift. But what's interesting, right, is then but Peter knew where to stop
Yep.
and Roger went like he gave up too much, so he gets reckless, and that's what kills him, right? That
Roger getting pushed around in that little wheelbarrow is going to take me out every time
It's
because
so
he's
great.
getting sicker and sicker. So
Yeah.
he's just getting more and more out of it. And then it's so heartbreaking when he's like, we got him, didn't we, Peter? And he's
Ah,
trying to get the reassurance. It's very Band of Brothers, in the trenches, trying to make him feel comfortable before he dies and tell him, like, yeah, we got the bad guys. It gets to me every
yeah.
single time.
Well, and it's you had made the point earlier about how tough Peter's character is. Now he's willing to do the hard things, and like he's killed so many zombies and not cared, and even had some fun with it until that one, right? And but he also that's the why he was perfect because he still doesn't, right? He doesn't rationalize. He knows he's not going to get better. Any of that
It's a
other.
mercy kill.
It's
Yeah, it's a mercy
He's doing
thing.
a mercy to his friend. So, God, so what have we not chatted about? What else?
Oh my
What have
God,
we?
I could keep going.
Let's
Trust
keep
me.
going. I'm happy to keep talking. I got time. I'm trying to think of where else we could go with this.
I have a lot of feelings about how when they are facing the bikers, that the bikers sort of, like you said, show the antithesis to the community
Yeah,
approach.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, we have these four people who have decided to get together and escape on the helicopter, which I do love that Peter's like, shooting somebody would Steven's like, yeah, shooting somebody would be a bad idea, wouldn't it? And then Peter pulls out his huge AK, and the guys with like little pistols are like, oh yeah, that would be a bad idea. It's very much a machismo, like I
Yeah.
said, moment that was fun to watch. But they get to the mall and they've kind of got this paradise going on of like, okay, if we can cordon off certain sections of the mall and we push zombies to a specific area. And Peter is even teaching them. I'm thinking of specifically when they're in the gun store. He's like, no, no, talking to Steven, don't shoot at the grate because it's going to bounce off and ricochet and it'll just be a bullet chasing us around the store, is what he says.
Okay.
And it's another one of those small moments that I think says a lot about a character, which takes such a skill in with storytelling because he is thinking of it from that angle, whereas Steven's just like, oh, I got a big gun,
Yeah,
like
I'm
I
gonna
just,
Yeah, and you've got the machismo side with like Steven, right? And that opens you thinking like the C2 where him like all the wild shots and the bullet ricocheting around
yes,
and he's panicking with the one and it's like it's one zombie. This is classic slow zombies. Like you
yep.
can still fight them off and it's like, dude, you all you have to do is walk up and shoot it straight in the head if you'll
But he has to
relax.
show off. He
Yeah.
has to show off. He has to be the big man in charge. And it's that quiet confidence that Peter and Francine have that ultimately saved them.
Well, and
And
they're coachable. That was the other thing. I was gonna say.
yes,
Part of the reason their group works is they were like they will take advice from each other. They do just like it's a God, you're gonna get real deep and talk going back to the bikers. It is sort of a
yeah,
socialism versus anarchists sort of
it
worldview,
literally is. Yes.
and like it's and God, another movie eventually I'll do on this pod, even though it's not that old. I might have to do a whole just the Mad Max world. One of my other favorite things, just the
Fury
whole
Road is my
thing.
favorite movie of all time. I'm excited to hear you talk about it. That is a big one for
Because
me.
it's the same. It's this, you're exploring the very same themes, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you throw a monkey wrench into society? How do people react? And like you have people who band together and take care of each other, and you have people who go, I am going to take as much as I can until I die. And
The bikers literally, and I've noticed this on a couple different rewatches, but I think it really has hit home the past couple of times I rewatched this film due to current events. The bikers are literally taking gold off of these zombies. So they're accosting the old woman zombie to get her jewelry. It's not worth anything anymore.
yeah,
There is no economy to support that. And then to sort of mirror that right before they break in and show them stealing jewelry from zombies, we see Peter and I think Roger in the bank. And
yeah,
and Peter's like, why not? Like, yeah, let's take some
you never
cash
know.
because
You
you
never
never,
know.
he says, you never know. And he's like, whatever. And then they pose for that picture in front of the security camera. And it gets to me every time. I'm like, they're finding joy in this moment. And also, they're not, it's coming from a place of, I want us to survive. Whereas when the bikers break in, it's like, oh shit, they have all of this treasure, for lack of a better term, in the mall. And they're not thinking of, oh, if we break, instead of breaking in, why don't we introduce ourselves and say,
Yeah.
hey, we have bikes and gasoline. You guys have a fucking helicopter. Let's start there. And you're getting in and out of the mall. How can we help? And like, we have ammo, you have a gun store, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it once again, like the because it's a running thing right now. The monster's not the monster,
Yep.
right? The monster is a plot mechanism. Zombieism is just a plot device. The monster's us, right?
I like
Frankenstein.
that you I like that you said zombieism as if it's like a
Yeah,
belief system.
yeah. It's there. If we just talk to them and maybe hit them with some more rational ideas,
They'll hear
they
us out. Yeah.
they'll hear us out. Which is, I will say, I always felt like later Romero movies fall down a little bit when we start getting to the notion that the zombies become a little trainable and they've got,
Please.
it's like,
That's where it falls apart for me. And I have watched the last two movies he ever made. And I understand where he's coming from. I can appreciate the craft, but they can't touch the original
no,
three. Like they just, there's no way.
because the zombies aren't supposed to be characters.
Exactly.
That's supposed to be kind of the point of the whole thing. The zombies aren't characters unless they're briefly a character, like Roger, like Steven, like where you're dealing with it to go, okay, wait a minute, we have to. These aren't strangers. These are people we know, and how do we react
Yeah.
to that, right? Like, and in both instances, fucking Peter just shot him.
And oh my God, Peter shooting Roger in the closet or the bedroom
Yeah,
while Francine and Steven are watching the television that has now devolved into uh they don't give him a name, but it's Richard France with the eye patch.
the guy with the eye patch. It's so
Oh
great.
my God, he's so good. But you have that moment of, again, Galen is the one that's pregnant. She's the one, sorry, the character's name is Francine, you
Yeah,
guys, my bad.
yeah.
Francine's the one that's pregnant. She's the one that should be, by all accounts, emotional, hysterical, whatever. And she just kind of locks eyes with Steven. And he's the one that flinches. He's the one that flinches at the gunshot. And she's the one that's got her stoic, emotional shit
Yeah.
together. But the TV program that they're watching is still that group stuck at the TV station that they left behind. And Richard France is just like, if you would all listen to me,
And
like, why are you pushing these rational ideas away? You know?
what was so funny, what I loved about that too, and it hit me as we were talking, like the progression of it is like you open with the scientist who's a little aggressive, and everybody's like, but he looks like a normal scientist. He's wearing a suit, and I just
Except for the
love.
eye patch.
But this is when you cut to Richard France. It's like, here's the new scientist, because this is
Yes.
where society is now. And it is this crazy guy in an eye patch screaming about nuking cities, like, and going, we
We
have
have
to remain
gone
rational.
we have gone full Alex Jones at that point.
It's
They
so
have,
perfect. This
I
is our
mean,
government scientist now.
I listen, I watched this for probably like God knows the 10th, 11th, whatever, 12th time in my entire life, when we were all locked down. And I was just like, okay, maybe this is a little too on the nose, but thank God we do have some good comedic relief with the bikers. And then
Yeah.
I do want to talk about my favorite zombies in a little bit. But that scene in particular always strikes me because it's people grasping at straws for things they don't have answers to and sort of creating solutions to a problem that's not actually the problem, right? And nuking isn't going to fix anything because the virus would very much still be alive.
Yeah.
It's spread at this point, or at least according to the aerial shots we get when they're in the helicopter and Steven's like, my God, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
He's so that's like the only serious line we get out of him for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But there are so many interesting, tiny, tiny moments like that where you could just take this at face value and be like, oh my God, it's a bombastic late 70s schlocky horror over the top fake blood because the blood is neon red, y'all. It
Yeah.
is, and it looks like acrylic paint. You can handle this if you're not into horror. And the zombie flesh looks like, I'm pretty sure Savini said that it was foam latex. And then at one point there is some edible things that they throw
a woman
in.
gets bitten on the arm, and it is so
Yes.
clearly that her arm is just made of cake with, I think,
Yes.
the red jelly and the squib in it to just squirt when he bites in.
So that is from this is another story that I was told secondhand. So if it's not true, I apologize, y'all. I'm just listening to people who were on set at the time. They might be embellishing. I was told that one night they had craft services food they had to get rid of. And so they were like, why not?
Low budget film. Uh, so I was gonna say, I know I'll loop back to one thing and then let's talk
Yeah,
about your
yeah.
favorite zombies. I think that'll make a good kind of where we kind of wrap it up. But it is funny the nuke thing. Go all the way back to my favorite zombie book, which is World War Z. That they do the
Yes.
whole thing about why modern. He does a whole thing saying Battle of Yonkers is about how modern battle tactics doesn't work on zombies.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, all we did was make radioactive zombies. That was what happened when they nuked the one city, right? And they're like, we can't go there now. We just made radioactive
Right.
zombies. That's all we did.
And our
Uh,
water supply and the
yeah,
soil.
yeah. It's like the whole Northeast is useless. Like they
Oh
tried. So it
God.
was a perfect thing. So let's talk about your favorite zombies. Then we'll some concluding thoughts. This is great so far. I'm loving this. Thank you
Yeah,
again for doing it.
I could yap for hours about this movie. I think there's so many layers that get overlooked. So my favorite zombies, there are a specific one when they first get to the mall when they're showing these sort of, cut in scenes of zombies doing various things around the mall. And there's two zombies that are just stuck on the escalator.
Go. Yeah.
Like they're stuck on the same 3 or 4 steps. To me, that's kind of the movie's thesis in a shot, right? Very nihilistic, very, we're all stuck on this escalator and you are not cognizantly making choices. You're just going where the escalator is taking you. And that was 100% sort of Romero's, I think, MO by setting things in a mall was critiquing that mindset, this overconsumptive mindset of, do you actually want that thing or do you just want what you're being told that you should want? And that's still something that gets discussed today. And I mean, with ever since TikTok shop became a thing, y'all don't get me started. It's my nemesis, not because I buy things from it, but because I think it should die. But they sort of, there's a couple different moments where they have shots like that I just love so much. And then the other is when Steven turns in the elevator
Hmm.
because Roger, it took like about a day and a half ish, we
Okay.
think,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
turn. And he looks so scary when he's laying in that bed. That was the one makeup that actually scared me as a young teen.
He when he rises up, I was gonna mention that it was like I think they were like, okay, this is a character. We love him. We're gonna have an emotional moment. We're gonna spend a little extra time on this makeup in this shot. And he looks great. He looks like a zombie that we would think of in later movies. Like his cheeks are hollowed out. It's a great
Yes.
shot. It's a really
He
great shot.
looks like when the Dietzes are coming back in the seance in Beetlejuice
Yep.
and
Yeah.
and his face is getting sunken in. That's
Yeah.
exactly what Roger looks like. But Steven in the elevator, he only goes up or down like 2 or 3 floors and then the doors open and he's already a
He's a
zombie.
son. He did get shot, and he had some, and he got
Yeah.
bit. But yes, it was that,
He's
and he's they gave him that actor put everything into doing that broken leg walk. That
David
was
Imge. He went full on, my guy. He was with it.
because because I will say, out of the four of them, I thought he was kind of the weakest actor in terms of like his character. He's okay, but like I was like, he's like, nope. I spent this whole movie and I have worked this zombie walk. God damn it! I am putting my whole foot, literally, into my zombie walk.
Jail for that joke, Dan. It's such a dad joke. But it's true. He really did, I think, had this moment of like, okay, I'm gonna really sell this. And it was fun. And I really liked it. I just him turning so quickly has
Yeah,
always been a point of contention for
yeah,
me. I'm like, come on.
yeah. That's a I will say one of my favorite. So he did Babylon 5, the TV show. J. Michael
Yes.
Straczynski, and someone asked him a great story, and I think this a great question, and he had a great story to it because someone asked him one time. He goes, "So how fast? Star Furies is the name of the ship in that, and I promise this relates to zombies." And he goes, "Well,
No,
how
no,
fast?"
go, go.
They go, "How fast do Star Furies fly?" And he goes, "At the speed of plot." And
Oh, that's good.
he goes, "Because if I tell you." He goes, and I love y'all, you were my people, but what of you nerds are going to show up and tell me how in season 3, episode 17, I made something happen that wasn't possible because you know how fast Star Furies are. And
Yep.
I'm like, I think so the zombie virus spreads at the speed of plot as you need it to happen. And
So true.
I always respect that. Like, not to go to a whole other, it was why midichlorians, like when they explained the Force, that was the beginning
Yes.
of everything falling apart, right? It's like, no,
You,
you can't
now they
explain
know.
it. Yeah, like now
You've shown the man behind the curtain,
it's
and
not,
it's not magic
it's
anymore.
not, but so my favorite zombie who showed back up, although it might be a plot hole, but I still don't care, is when Peter's escaping at the end, and the
Yes.
one that stole the machine gun from them in the store is still, however many weeks and months they've been there, still has the machine gun that he took from
Pristine, still
Roger.
grip.
He's
Yes.
just gripping it in his hand because that's all he's doing, and then he grabs Peter's other rifle from him, and I loved that. It was such a fun little callback, and then other
Ah,
70s movie, I don't know why it made me laugh, but the Buddhist zombie was really funny to me because it made me
took
think of
me
the
right
movie.
out.
It made me think of the movie Airplane when Roger
Oh,
Stack beats
yes.
up all the people trying to hand him pamphlets. That was all I could think of when it was
So
happening.
good.
But it's I loved this movie. I am so happy you asked
I'm
me to watch it
I'm glad that
again.
you rewatched it and that you liked it. I was a little nervous.
I was first time in 20 years. I had not watched this movie in 20 years.
Oh my God.
And I sat
It,
down and I was like, I was into it 15 minutes into it. And I just never, I was like, this is great. There were a couple parts, a little bit. I watched it in the daytime. There were still a couple of parts where I got a little scared, even though I knew what was
oh,
going to happen. I was like, oh, we're gonna scooch the slider through this bit of tension, just a little bit.
you also watched it on YouTube, so you got like YouTube, quality.
It was not bad, to be honest. I was
Really?
kind of impressed. Whoever put it up on YouTube, and it says it's been up there like 8 years or something
Yeah,
like that.
it'll if it's who I'm thinking of, it comes and goes because Amazon they currently have the rights to it, the digital rights, and so
Yeah.
if you don't have a physical copy, it comes and goes. But I love sorry, continue. I just love that you were like still a little scared in parts because
Ah,
that's so real.
yeah. I mean, there were still, and I'm like, I know what happens. I know how the movie ends. I
Yep.
know everybody that dies. I know when they die. I like, even though I hadn't seen it, I remembered all that. One, it's not a ton of characters, right? So you
No.
kind of, which is great. You get attached to them. But there were just a few parts, like it was the truck sequence because I knew what was coming, and that
Oh,
is very tense. And
extremely.
they do a good job. And Roger's pissing me off because he's being just so cavalier about it, and it is just So anyway, it was God, it was great. Well, any closing thoughts? Because we've talked about this for about an hour, and it's been awesome.
Oh my gosh. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, not just my favorite horror of all time. It is something that I feel like you can go back to and watch it just for fun and kind of make fun of the effects and the silliness of the biker gang and the pie in the face to one of the zombies, which is
Yeah, that
ridiculous. And then
so great.
the seltzer squirters from the bar,
Yeah.
or you can really sit with it and think where and when this was made and what was going on in the world when it was written. and how little has changed.
Yeah.
And like you said, it is ultimately hopeful because Peter has a moment at the end of the film that always touches me, but especially every time I've rewatched it, probably in the last 2 to 3 years, continues to hit home, where he is fully prepared to complete suicide. He
Yeah.
has the gun to his head and he looks up and he doesn't say anything, but his face says it all, where he clearly is like, no, fuck this.
Yeah.
You know what I
Fuck
mean?
it.
He makes the decision to live. And he shoots one zombie in the head, fights his way through the others, gets the gun back, etc., makes it to the helicopter. And one thing that I always hold on to from horror films that have sort of hopeful, uplifting endings like that is that hopeful message. And it's cheesy and overwrought and whatever negative terminology you would want to use there. Those moments can be, especially in non horror films, I often find them very cloying. Him deciding not to kill himself
Yeah.
is so weirdly encouraging and helpful.
Well,
It just is.
well, and I think just to yeah, the same to end in that same spot, and what I think I love about it, right? Like here we are today, even potentially more so at that time. I will say nothing's changed, maybe about people, but the world has changed and it's become harder.
Right.
And like we literally are faced with legitimate existential crises right now,
Every day.
right? Every day, individually as a society, and like we see it. We both hang out on Blue Sky. But like, it's why I explicitly reject too much doomerism because
Yes.
it's just a different form of complying in advance. And
100%.
and it is like there's just something to going. Peter was like, you know what? They are gonna drag me out of here kicking and fucking screaming. That is the way I'm gonna leave because it's the best way to live right up until the end. And you never know what happens. One of my other I think of favorite lines for one of my favorite movies, which is Rogue One, is
Yes.
when Jen is looking at everybody and she says, "We take a chance and then we take another chance until we win or until we're out of chances." And I am like,
Mm.
that's what Peter did. That was the whole point of this, is they were like, we are going to live as well as we can and retain our humanity. And that's the point versus the biker gang who decides to like it's fun. They're so silly. And it actually is legit the silly. It fits in the exact same way how ridiculous the gangs in Mad Max
Yes.
movies are because they've just kind of cracked and they're like, we're just going to be fucking ridiculous in the face of all this. And it's not a correct response, but it's a valid response, right? Like,
Yeah, and to your point, and I don't want to cut you off or anything like that, but just to
no,
add
perfect.
on,
Add on, please.
there's two things I thought of while you were talking that I was trying to, I think I could have done a better job communicating throughout the rest of the episode of why I
Great.
love this movie so much. It is in terms of doomerism. I was talking to my best friend Charlotte about this. It is such a privilege to throw your hands up and say, well, nothing can get better, so I'm not going to do anything, because that means that your current reality isn't bad enough for you to
Yeah.
have been doing anything in the first place. It's a, and no one needs you. Like, no, you haven't made yourself useful in your community, basically, which sounds really mean and dark and whatever, but it's a harsh truth. And then additionally, sort of with the silliness of it all, there's two things happening. The biker gang is the over the top Mad Max style silliness.
Yeah.
But I mean, when when Peter dies, or not Peter, my gosh, you guys, Roger dies,
Yeah.
Peter makes Francine and Steven a steak dinner at the steakhouse and dresses up as a waiter. Like he
Yeah.
leans into it, and they go candy shopping for no reason. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's and I just talk about this a lot on my other podcasts. There's humor as a healthy coping mechanism to bring joy and levity in the moment, and then there's humor as a deflection.
Yep.
And humor as a deflection will cost you so much in the long term of not examining things. And then with the biker gang, they refused to take the situation seriously enough and take the zombies as a threat seriously enough, and then they got. So
Yeah, you're
I'll
not.
get off my soapbox about it, but
No, I think it's great. I think it's why the movie fits to us because in our moment, right, where we sit right now was a great time to revisit it because you're not going to give up your way through this, and you're also not going to shitpost your way through it, right? Like
correct.
that is like you've got to have moments to sit and be earnest and hold on to your humanity and enjoy college football or watch a movie or do all these other things. And I think that's the piece about this movie, right? I think it is it turns a very critical lens on us as a
Yes.
society, and yet at the same time has this hope of saying, but we are capable of being better than this. Like that is like
100%.
that's the story of the movie. If we stick together, if we don't give in to nihilism, if we just keep trying, there is maybe a way out that is through. And that's kind of where, and then they fly off, right? And it goes, and it never ends. It also just comes with life is this infinite thing, right? Like you fly off into the sunset, and who knows what you keep taking chances till all the chances are gone. And I loved it. I am so happy. Um, it was perfect for what I'm trying to make this podcast to be, which is why does art speak to us and how does it fit? And like, yes, older movie, would it hold up? It obviously held up. It holds up super well. And I really appreciate you taking time with me to talk about this because I
Aw,
really enjoyed it.
I had such a good time. And my final thought, um, Peter says right before he says his iconic line that got used in the marketing of, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. Peter is very, as always, head on his shoulders, right? But he says, as he's looking out at the sea of zombies, they're us. That's all. And when I look at what we're up against, whether that's at a local or national or international level, people are just people. And they might have more power than us in the moment, but they are not infallible. They are not unconquerable and they're not unbeatable, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very hopeful movie, and I'm really glad that you were down to talk about it, gore and
Yeah.
all.
Gore and all. I made it through. I closed my eyes a couple times and I got my teddy bear. And I did good. Well, Jamie, I loved this. Thank you again. We'll find some other horror movie that maybe is harder for me, and we'll do it again at some point in the future because I enjoyed this immensely.
Him comes out in a couple weeks. The new
Oh, the
the
football.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, Jordan Peele's one of those ones where I made this joke. It'll be a good just light ending to this. We were talking about our mutual friend Ryan Downey about this, and he and I
Yes.
both admitted I am an inveterate. Just go read the Wikipedia entry for most horror movies, especially if they end
Done.
up being cultural.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope. I'm just gonna let me go read about Nope. Let me go find out
I was
what's
gonna say a
happening.
movie you should watch. Nope.
Yeah, I probably should. Let me go read that. Actually, most of the A24 movies, I only know what happens because I'm like, I can't. I'm not gonna make it through those. So I'm gonna
I'm
just
gonna
read it.
tell you. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you. You should probably just read the Wikipedia for some of those. They're very intense.
Yeah, no, I was like, let me just read about this hereditary thing. Uh, I'll be good. Yeah, you know what? I'll stop right there.
Oh
I
God,
I
yes,
watched The
very
Ring in a
real.
movie theater and didn't sleep for 3 days.
Oh
Uh,
my God.
I removed the television from my bedroom. Like it is.
Ah,
Yeah, no, no. So anyway, on that light note, such a pleasure. Thank you. We're gonna figure out a
thank
way to
you.
do this again. And this What's the Hold Up Pod? We've done it again. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. It'll be where folks can find it, and I'll remind everybody again, if you can't find it, tell me, and I'll make sure you can find it on your platform because I'm still getting good at this. So appreciate everybody, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.